whenever a new camera comes out, everybody starts reviewing it, looking at it, testing it, trying out all the things they like to try out on it, and just pumping a load of stuff out onto the internet. A bit like this. So what I want to talk to you today about is Vlog L on the Panasonic DVX200. My experience with it so far is not particularly good. It's really, well, it's a kind of one of those situations where you think, if you absolutely need it, then great, use it. But other than that, I would avoid it like the plague, because it supposedly has 12 stops of dynamic range. Then the DVX200 when using Vlog L, and of course, you know, everyone likes the kind of whole sort of log thing at the moment, and likes the ability to supposedly grade. But I sort of think that's good, but not at the expense of your image quality overall. And the problem with Vlog L on the DVX200 is that when you record it internally to the 8-bit 420 codec, it looks bad. It has a lot of macro blocking in color, particularly on faces. I've noticed it. So if you take this sort of side of my face here, where there are certain sort of red bits, certain levels of color just go into sort of the red, you get macro blocking. You get actually squares where the color changes. It looks really awful, and I don't know if that's purely the internal codec, or whether it's whether it would do that when recording externally as well. I hope not, because hopefully externally it would just be kind of like dumped from the sensor to the recorder, and then put into a decent kind of ProRes codec. The second thing is banding. Something you don't get with the scene profiles is much evidence of banding. They look really quite nice. And with Vlog, however, you notice that you can barely see it in the actual original file, but as soon as you grade it and you push anything up, you can visibly see the bands. You know, if you had a small section of screen like this, you'd kind of have like 6 bands going on across a very sort of slight gradient, and it just doesn't look good at all. And you sort of think, well, you're investigating pixel peep in one particular frame, and that's never good to do, because you don't really use your footage like that. It would just be playing throughout. And I would agree with that with the banding. You probably wouldn't notice it too much unless you had a sort of very, very sort of gentle gradient in the sky or something. But the macro blocking just looks awful. And I'm using that term, and I'm not absolutely sure that's what it is. But that's certainly what it looks like. It looks like a codec artifact where the color is sort of like, you know, you just literally got blocks appearing around certain bits of color. Really horrible, and doesn't do it in the scene profiles at all, even if you grade them quite heavily. But the output, the Vlog output, the Vlog L output, more importantly, probably to stress, is really not very good so far in my experience on the DVX200. So yeah, you might want to come back and just say, yeah, you're not doing it right, you're not exposing it right, it's got to be, you know. And I agree, I'm new to this, you know. This is log is not something I've used before. So I'm just sampling it and I'm grading it using, I'm either doing it just manually using curves, RGB curves, that sort of thing, or I'm using proper LUT to do it. Tried that, looks bad. So I'm actually using Colorista at the moment to do it from Red Giant, and that really does a really good job. But just not impressed, really. Not impressed at all with the Vlog side of things. Shame, because it would be a nice little fun thing to play with, but I don't have any need for it. So I think I'm going to ditch it and use the scene profiles as I am at the moment.